At 2:11 in the morning, your eyes start lying to you. Not dramatically, not all at once, just a little at a time. You stop trusting what you see, and you start trusting patterns. The same tiles, the same pillars, the same shuttered storefronts. Because patterns don't change. Places don't reinvent themselves, not without permission. But that night, the mall did. And it did it like it had been waiting for someone to notice. The store wasn't there yesterday, and the mall had been dead for years. This is the Liminal Archives. We preserve recordings people tried to forget, and the places that refuse to stay forgotten. Tonight's entry was recovered from a damaged security tape labeled Mall Tape 03. No location, no owner, no official report attached. Only a note written on the case. If you see it open, do not go in. The mall was supposed to be a simple job. One guard, one circuit every hour, one long night at a time. There was nothing left to protect. No stores open, no shoppers, no cash drawers. Just a building that used to mean something, and now only held air. Old malls don't feel empty. They feel paused, like a song stopped mid-chorus, like a crowd frozen right before applause. You can sense what used to be there. That's what makes it worse. According to payroll fragments attached to the tape, the guard's name was Evan Marr. Night security, graveyard shift, the kind of person who keeps conversations short because the quiet does most of the talking. Evan's office was a small room behind a locked door. A desk, a cheap fan, a wall of monitors that never fully stabilized. Half the feeds were grain, the other half were lies in low resolution. Evan worked the same shift every night. Clock in, make a round, check the exits. Right, nothing happened. Go home. The mall liked routine. It liked predictability. It liked knowing where people were. Evan started where he always started. East wing first, same doors, same locks, same boredom. He walked past grates pulled down over empty shops, past faded posters for sales that ended years ago, past kiosks stripped down to metal frames like skeletons. His keys jingled as he moved. He didn't like that sound. In a quiet place, your own noise feels like an announcement. It tells the dark where you are. He checked an emergency exit. The crash bar was intact. The alarm light was dead, like always. He made a note in his head and moved on. The floor tiles changed color at the same spot every night. A line of beige squares cutting through off-white. Evan used it as a marker, a reminder that he was halfway through, that he was progressing, that he wasn't trapped. Halfway down the corridor, he heard the first wrong sound. Not footsteps, not voices, not wind. Music. The kind of music you hear in a store at noon. Soft, cheerful, designed to be ignored. It didn't belong in a building that had been closed for years. Evan stopped walking. The music kept going. He leaned slightly toward it, as if listening could explain it. He turned his head, and the music stopped like someone flipped a switch. Evan stood still, waiting for it to start again. It didn't. He exhaled, slow. He didn't laugh. He didn't make a joke into his radio. He just kept walking, like acknowledging it would make it real. He told himself it was interference. A car radio outside, a kid nearby, a weird echo from somewhere else, a building settling, old wiring doing old things. But wiring doesn't choose when to stop. Wiring doesn't wait for you to turn a corner. Evan returned to the security room and looked at the camera feeds. He wanted something simple. A hallway, a blank wall, a normal angle. He found the East Corridor feed. It was labeled KM 07. He watched it for a full 10 seconds before his brain accepted what it was seeing. The corridor was longer than it should be, past the directory sign, past where the wall should have ended. There were lights beyond the directory, glowing into a stretch of hallway that didn't exist on any map. Evan leaned closer to the monitor. He adjusted the knob. The picture rolled and then snapped back. The corridor stayed long. He switched to another camera angle, then back. Same. He blinked hard and stared again. The corridor stayed long. Evan's hand hovered over the radio, then lowered. No one else was on shift. No one was going to come running. Not for a hallway that looked wrong. He grabbed his flashlight and stood up. He did what people always do when something is wrong in the dark. He went toward it. Not because he was brave, because he needed proof. Proof that the building wasn't rewriting itself. Proof that his mind wasn't drifting. Proof that he could still trust the edges of things. The East Wing felt colder than the rest of the mall. Not temperature cold, quiet cold. Like the air didn't move the same. Like sound fell into the carpet and stayed there. Evan's footsteps echoed, but the echo sounded delayed, as if the hallway thought about it before repeating it. He reached the directory sign. This was the end. This was where the corridor stopped. Evan could picture the blank wall behind it perfectly. A place he'd leaned his shoulder against while checking his phone. A place he'd stared at during slow nights, counting minutes. He stepped around the directory, and the world was different. Where there should have been plywood and graffiti, there was glass. Where there should have been darkness, there was warm, steady light. A storefront sat between two dead stores like a tooth newly grown in a mouth that had been missing it. The floor in front of it was clean. No dust, no footprints, no scattered debris. That alone made Evan's stomach tighten. Nothing in this mall was clean. Not anymore. Above the glass, a sign flickered like an old CRT holding on by willpower. The letters smeared when they changed. Evan lifted his flashlight, more out of habit than need. The store didn't need illumination. It had its own. The sign stabilized for a moment. It read, Marr & Co. Evan's breath caught. Marr. His name. Printed like it had been waiting for him. He stared at it until his eyes watered. He looked away down the corridor just to break the spell. Then he looked back. The sign read, Marr & Com. One letter wrong. Evan's mouth opened and he closed it again. He looked away. Looked back. Marr & Co. Looked away. Looked back. Mara & Co. Not random, not chaos, like someone was typing his name and learning by making mistakes. Like the store was practicing. Evan took one step back. His shoe squeaked on the tile. The squeak felt loud enough to wake the building. The lights in the store didn't flicker. They didn't react. They just waited. Evan moved closer to the glass, slow. Inside, shelves stood neatly arranged. A counter sat at the front. Racks of clothing that looked brand new. No fading, no dust. No price tags curled with age. And 3 mannequins posed like shoppers frozen midday. One near a rack, one near the counter, one facing the window like it had been standing there to greet him. Their faces were wrong, not broken, not painted over, just smooth, featureless, as if the store couldn't remember what a face was supposed to be. Evan's flashlight beam slid over the counter. A receipt printer sat there with fresh paper hanging out. The paper wasn't yellowed. It wasn't brittle. It looked warm, like it had just been printed. The printer clicked softly. Once, twice. Like a fingernail tapping from the other side. Evan stepped back from the glass. He turned to the directory sign. The old map was under cracked plastic, faded and peeling. He knew it by heart. He had stared at it 100 nights. But tonight it looked refreshed. The "You Are Here" dot flickered, then drifted. Not far, just enough to place him directly in front of the new store. Evan watched it move with a slow, sinking disbelief. Then a new line appeared on the store list, clean and black like fresh ink. Now open, Marr & Co. Evan whispered without meaning to. No. The word didn't sound like denial. It sounded like a request. The ceiling speaker above him crackled like a throat clearing. The mall PA hadn't worked in years. Evan knew because he'd tried it once during a long shift, just to hear another voice. Tonight it woke up easily, like it had been waiting for the right audience. "Good evening, valued guest," the speaker said. The voice was distorted, but cheerful. A customer service tone that felt wrong in the dark. "Welcome. Welcome. Welcome." The last "welcome" echoed half a beat too long, as if the building liked the word. Evan raised his radio. His thumb hovered over the button, but no one was there to answer. He still pressed it. Control to anyone. Static answered. Not dead static. Shaped static, the kind that almost becomes a syllable. Evan lowered the radio. The PA voice continued. "We are pleased to announce extended hours." Evan swallowed. Then the voice added, too smoothly. "We are pleased to announce you." Evan's stomach dropped. He looked at the store again. The mannequins hadn't moved, but something about their posture felt more attentive, like they were listening too. Evan backed away, eyes scanning for an exit sign. He needed something with rules. A door, a crash bar, a path the building couldn't rewrite. He moved toward the escalators, toward the central rotunda, toward the part of the mall that still felt familiar. The escalators had been dead every night he worked, but as he approached, the down escalator groaned. The motor coughed like an old lung, and the steps lurched forward. Only one direction. Down. The up escalator remained still. A choice removed. An instruction given. The down escalator clacked slowly, heavy. Evan didn't step onto it. He turned and ran. He ran toward the nearest emergency exit. He remembered checking it earlier. He remembered the red sign. He remembered the cold draft around the frame. He found the door. He shoved it open and stepped into the same corridor. Same tiles. Same lights. Same directory sign waiting at the end. Evan stopped so fast his shoes scraped. He turned back. The door behind him was gone. No hinges. No handle. No outline. Just a blank wall painted the color of denial. His breath came in short bursts. He tried another exit. The next door opened into a hallway that curved gently and returned him to the directory sign. Another door opened into a stairwell that ended in a locked gate that wasn't there before. Another door opened into darkness that felt too thick, and when he stepped back, the door was a wall again. The mall wasn't trapping him with locks. It was trapping him with design. It guided him like signage, like floor arrows, like a gently sloped ramp that always returns you to the center. And the center, tonight, was the store. Evan found himself back in front of the glass. He hadn't chosen that. He hadn't walked in a straight line. The mall had curved him, softly, politely, like customer service. The sign above the store flickered again. It stopped misspelling. It landed on certainty. Evan Marr. Evan's throat tightened. Then the sign changed one last time. Evan. Open. Evan shook his head, slow. Stop, he said. The word sounded small. The speaker answered, closer now. Not louder. Closer. You are expected, it said. Your shift begins. Evan lifted the radio again. He didn't know why. He pressed the button. "Is anyone—" Static swallowed the rest. Then, for 1 second, the static sounded like a whisper. "Go in." Evan stared at the radio like it had betrayed him. The store's doorbell chimed softly from inside, though the door hadn't moved. The mannequins were still, but the one facing the window seemed nearer. Not closer in distance, closer in attention. Investigators later found the security office undisturbed. Keys on the desk, a coffee cup half full, a jacket on the chair. No signs of struggle, no broken glass, no forced doors. But payroll records indicate Evan Marr worked 6 shifts at this location. The 7th shift is unaccounted for. The mall closure date is listed as indefinite. No reopening permits were ever filed. No new tenants were ever announced. Only this tape. Back at the counter, the receipt printer clicked again. Paper advanced in short bursts, deliberate, like typing with careful fingers. Evan leaned closer to the glass to read it. The first line printed, "Customer, Evan Marr." Evan didn't speak. He didn't blink. The second line printed, "Item, employment." The third line printed, "Price, 0000 free," which is always how the worst things begin. Then the final line printed, crisp and centered, "Total due, you." Evan stumbled backward. His shoulder bumped the directory sign. The plastic cover rattled. He turned his head down the corridor and realized the corridor wasn't empty anymore. Shapes stood in the distance, not close enough to see clearly, just close enough to make his mind do the worst work. They were still, upright, facing him. Evan lifted his flashlight. The beam hit the nearest figure. A mannequin, but dressed like a security guard. Dark jacket, same cut as Evan's uniform, a name tag that caught the light. The tag was blank, like the mall hadn't finished writing that part yet. Behind it stood more figures, some in winter coats, some in business attire, some in aprons like food court workers. All posed like they were waiting in line, waiting to be processed, waiting to be purchased. The PA speaker crackled again. "The mall is open," it said. "The mall is safe. The mall is complete when filled." The music returned. Not distant now, clearer, still wrong. As if the notes were slightly tilted, as if the melody had learned happiness from a manual. Evan turned his body so he could see both the store and the shoppers. He was trapped between a door that invited him and a hallway that watched him. He realized something then, with cold clarity. If the mall wanted to drag him inside, it could have. It hadn't. It was offering him the illusion of choice. Fear can only hold you for so long before your mind demands a decision. Escape or surrender. Evan swallowed hard. His voice came out thin. "If I go in?" He paused, like speaking the sentence might finalize it. "Do you let me out?" The speaker answered instantly. "Yes." Too quick. Too certain. Evan nodded once, like he had just been told store hours. He stepped forward and reached for the handle. The metal felt colder than it should be. He expected resistance. He expected the door to stick. Instead, it swung inward with smooth, practiced ease. The door chime rang out bright and clean. A sound so ordinary it felt obscene. Warm air spilled out. It smelled like fresh fabric, new plastic, and something sweet, like cinnamon, like a pretzel stand that never closed. Evan stepped over the threshold. The tape stuttered for a moment, then stabilized. The store was bigger inside, not spacious, not cleverly arranged, bigger in a way that made geometry feel embarrassed. The aisles went deeper than the mall could hold. The ceiling rose higher than the wing allowed, and the fluorescent lights didn't buzz. They sang. a layered cord that made Evan's teeth feel strange. He walked toward the counter, careful, trying not to look at the mannequins, trying not to acknowledge the line of shoppers behind him, perfectly still and perfectly patient. He stopped at the counter. His hands hovered over the surface, then pulled back like the counter was hot. He looked toward the door. The glass reflected the store interior. Not the mall corridor, just more aisles, more lights, more distance. The exit wasn't an exit. It was a mirror pretending to be a door. Evan's breathing sped up. He turned back to the counter. The receipt printer chirped again. A new slip printed. Position: floor associate. Another line followed. Duties: greet, assist, remain. Evan swallowed. No, he whispered. The store didn't respond like a person. It responded like a system. A rail squealed softly. A clothing rack slid forward from the shadows like it was on a hidden track. A uniform hung there, security style. His size, his style. No company logo, no mall name. Just one embroidered word stitched clean across the chest. Open. Evan reached out and touched the fabric. It felt warm, like it had been worn recently. The speaker's voice softened, intimate. Please change into approved attire. Evan looked at the mannequins, their smooth faces angled toward him. Not moving, not blinking, but watching. The one nearest the counter had its hands placed neatly on the countertop, like it had just finished a transaction. Evan noticed something else then. A small frame on the wall behind the counter. Employee of the month. The photo inside was blurred by static, like the tape didn't want to show it. But the shape in the frame wore the same uniform. The same word. Open. Evan stepped closer. The photo's nameplate was clear. It didn't say a name. It said, "You." Evan stumbled backward. His heel caught on something. He looked down. A line of tape on the floor. A boundary marking where customers were supposed to stand. A queue line. Neat, helpful, normal. Beyond it, the shoppers stood in silence, waiting, as if they'd done this before, as if they'd been here a long time. Evan looked to the door again. The glass still reflected aisles. Not the mall, not freedom. The store had replaced the idea of outside with more inside. The music shifted. For one brief moment, it sounded almost comforting. Then it warped, like a smile pulled too far. Evan's hands shook as he held the uniform. He didn't put it on. Not yet. He stood behind the counter because there was nowhere else to stand that felt safer. That was the trick. It made the counter feel like shelter. It made his role feel like protection. The speaker spoke again, gentle. Smile for our guests. Evan's mouth opened. He didn't smile. But the tape distorted at that exact moment, and the distortion made it look like he did. The picture broke into heavy static. A second of gray snow. Then the image returned, but the angle was different. We see Evan behind the counter. Still, upright, hands placed neatly on the surface, head slightly tilted toward the glass, like he's waiting for someone to approach. His name tag is visible for one clear frame. It reads, Evan. His face is unclear, smudged by compression, by static, by something that doesn't want to be recorded. Behind him, the aisles stretch into brightness. Too far, too clean, too endless. The door chime rings once. Bright, cheerful, normal. And the tape cuts to black. No rescue footage was attached. No police report. No closure. But there is one more artifact. A receipt found months later in the security office trash. Crumpled. Torn. Thermal paper faded at the edges. It had only one line still readable. Total due. You. If this record is authentic, Then the mall didn't kill Evan Marr. It didn't take him by force. It hired him. It assigned him a role. And it kept him where malls keep their most valuable assets. On the floor, on display, always available. So if you ever find yourself in a building that should be empty, and you hear music where there shouldn't be any, don't follow it. And if you see a storefront lit up in a dead wing of a dead mall, don't go in.